So welcome to another edition of Wealthy and Wise. I'm your host, Adam Kente, Executive Corporate Analyst here with NCH. And today we brought in the heavy hitter, David Van Landingham, one of our absolute experts in so many areas. And David, I brought you in today because we have a super important topic we want to talk about. And that is, should we have LLCs or should we have insurance? And it's a question that I get often is, well, my attorney said that just to get a good insurance policy, and as an attorney, you would think he would want to give me the right legal advice. So he said that an insurance policy was going to be good enough for me. And whether you're a real estate investor or you own a business of some kind, what is your take? Should we have insurance or should we have an LLC or should we have both? What's our best?
The answer is both. I mean, you need to have that LLC. That's what actually provides the asset protection and tax benefits on top of it. So it's not really just always about liability. But yeah, I've seen the question before pop up, regarding insurance. I've got enough insurance. I think I'm covered. My attorney told me I'm okay. My CPA told me that I'm okay. So I'm just going to start my business, just myself, with some insurance. Bad idea all the way around. So typically what we look at is liability and exposure to the client. So what happens with insurance, and insurance, it's good. You got to have it. Nothing against insurance, but it's not the catch-all for everything. So when we talk about insurance, we have to look at, does it cover everything? That's the big question. I don't know how many people out there have actually looked at their insurance policies. They're about this thick for a reason. And half of that is what they don't cover. The other half of it is, if you are sued and you just have an insurance policy, more than likely what you're going to have is an attorney that's going to sue beyond the insurance policy anyways, because now they can reach over into your pocket, especially if you don't have an LLC. So the thought here is to both set up the LLC based on what your business is, active income business, passive income business, and be protected for many different reasons and ways by the corporate veil, right? That's overreaching into your personal assets. The other side of the coin on the insurance is, when you talk about insurance itself, there's also umbrella insurance, and people get confused about that, thinking everything under that umbrella is covered, right? Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when people get umbrella insurance, they kind of feel like they have that extra security blanket, which they do a little bit. Insurance itself, $1 million liability policy costs anywhere between $800, maybe $1,300, depending upon the company, to cover you, for that liability. Adding an umbrella policy is probably a couple $100 more for another $1 million. Why is that so cheap? It kind of makes you wonder a little bit. Well, the reason is simply because in order for the umbrella policy to kick in, they must exhaust the other policy on whatever your limits are.
Well, so I wanted to ask this question because we talk about the LLC in protecting you. And we were talking earlier today about the fact that there are limited liability, but depending on where you incorporate and how you operate your business really makes a big difference on what type of protection you're going to get. And we're talking about the attorney that was actually in one of our classes once.
Right.
And share with the audience the story about what this attorney said about piercing the corporate veil and about having that LLC protection.
Yeah, I mean, very rarely would you get an attorney come up and slap you on the back at an event and say, good job. Most of them are kind of like, we're in competition with them. This gentleman in Dallas, Texas, came up afterwards and said, that was a great presentation. He says, what I do for a living is pierce the corporate veil. So my job as an attorney is to go out there and find ways to get to you personally. The top reasons, alter ego, commingling of funds, things of that nature, that is very easy for them to reach in and say that was you as an individual. And not only did he do this as a job for himself, but he's also employed by other attorneys because he's the expert and he knows the way.
That good.
He has a 95% success rate. Yeah, I would say he's really good.
That's amazing.
And he was actually very complimentary and said, you know what? I'm glad more people don't know about Nevada, because with Nevada's shield of liability, if I run into a case that has Nevada, I'm not taking it. So that's from the horse's mouth.
Yep. And one of the things that they look at, he's talked about commingling of funds, using the wrong account to pay the wrong bills. And normally, when he filed a lawsuit, he said that he would subpoena the record book, subpoena the bank statements.
Sure.
It's not being operated properly. That LLC is gone. Now, in a situation where you have insurance in place, obviously, we hope that the insurance is going to cover whatever incident took place. we hope as a business owner the insurance is going to cover it. However, I like to remind people, how do the adjusters and attorneys work for the insurance company, David?
Oh, so there's attorneys on both sides of this issue, right? So what happens with the adjusters and the attorneys, I mean, if they paid out on every claim that went across their desk, they'd be broke. They'd be out of business. So they fight very hard. I mean, I've had several clients over the years that came to me with their war stories of what happened to them before they knew about structuring, especially in Nevada. And, a simple situation. You live in a primary residence, it's your home. You decide to move and buy another house, and you're going to take that property and make it into a rental property. Well, a lot of people forget to add on as a rider the rental dwelling policy that now covers having a renter in place. And this one client called me one day and he says, I don't know what to do here. He says, my tenant called me, the hot water heater broke. It poured out water over about a third of the house and into the garage. And so when he called me, I said, you know what, no problem. I'm gonna call my insurance company. I'm sure they'll get somebody out there to look at it and then we'll get it fixed. So I call, the client calls the insurance company and he says, well, I told him, I said, my tenant called me, told me that I had water, from the hot water heater all over the house. And what do we do? And the insurance person said, well, this is a primary residence. It's not a rental property. The action is not covered. At all. Yeah. So, there's tons of stories like that where the insurance, companies look at themselves. You hear all the time about vicious dog breeds, and every insurance policy you're going to see, if there's a vicious dog breed, they're not covering anything. So if a kid gets bit or something like that, insurance company steps away. It's not our circus, not our monkeys. It's not their responsibility. But you can't fault the insurance company for doing that. Their first responsibility is to themselves and to their shareholders. So they're just doing their job.
Well, and you had a incident where the insurance company wanted to pay.
Yes.
And that would have caused you extreme liability.
Absolutely. So the insurance company, there was a horrific accident where a kid was hurt and very severely, not to our fault at all, and that was decided it wasn't our fault. But the insurance company and their attorneys wanted to put some money out there and pay to kind of make it go away. But the problem with that is our attorney said, no, don't do that, because the moment you pay, you just set precedent that there was, liable actions on our part, and then they could go after, us or our companies as well. So yeah, that's a real concern. You want an insurance company that's representing you, but at the same time, you need to have open conversations between either your attorney and their attorney to make sure they're not doing something to cause further harm to you.
So had they have actually wrote that check, they would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then culpability, they could have come back and then went after you after getting paid from the insurance.
Absolutely.
Then came back and sued you and your family.
Yeah.
And that would have been
how's it going to look in court when they said, Your Honor, we've already collected from the insurance company, so they've showed that they were somewhat responsible. They just don't give money away, right? And so we just continue down that road. So it's a slippery slope sometimes, but when you work in concert with the attorneys and with companies such as ours, we're looking out for your best interests, and we certainly have the ability to advise on that.
Good. So best advice for everybody out there: LLC is going to provide you with the asset protection if you set it up right, if you operate it properly. It's so important. This is not going to be a do-it-yourself project that you're going to form your own LLC and think you're good. Like David talked about, there are attorneys out there whose job it is to sue the LLC, take everything it has, and sue you personally. And additionally, it's wise to keep a good insurance policy as well. So thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Wealthy and Wise. Have a fantastic day.